All right, the next guest we have, um, man, this guy and I go back a long way, and I almost hesitate to say how long. But Dave Biwer is another Pacific Northwest guy, but with roots in the Pacific Northwest. But I think now, and you can bring him on, Ben. I think now, Dave, you have probably been down under, as they say, longer than you were over here. I mean, it's probably about the same amount of time. We can almost
Yeah,
be Australian.
man, great seeing you again. It's been too long. But yeah, what is it? 30 years of at least of ties together, I think. So I came out here when I was 24, maybe 23. So I've turned the corner. I'm nearing 30 years here. So
Awesome.
if I talk to people back home, they think my accent has changed a little bit, but the people here still think I'm holding true to my roots. So Pacific Northwest.
What's going on here, man? You're looking like it's 1986 or 87. It looks like you haven't aged at all in 30 years. I don't
Man,
know if it's the
oh man,
Foster on the
there you go,
Barbie or
man.
okay.
Take the cap off and we'll be set. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, I've been happy all my life for the most part. So I think smiling and keeping that positive attitude definitely helps. Got some smile wrinkles. That's about it. But yeah, the
The game
water's good down here. The stress levels are low.
the game keeps you young, doesn't it?
It does, even during the stressful times. So I think the game teaches you to compete, whether you're on the court or in life. And so when you get that unwanted loss, you don't dwell on it. You just get back up and move on. So yeah, as a young person, we think it's all about making jump shots and making amazing passes or getting huge blocks. But as we get to our age, we understand it's life lesson after life lesson.
Yeah. Hey, Dave, catch people up a little bit on your at least your playing career, okay? Because the reason you ended up in Australia is to be a ball player over there and make some money and chase the game you love around the world, just as I have a little bit, and talk about just your playing time a little bit and who you played with and where you played and just some of the successes along the way.
Yeah, well, back in '89, leaving Central Washington University, I got a phone call from Sydney to come over and play in this Division Twos. So most of Australia, which we can talk about a little bit more, is club basketball or that type of structure. So the top of club basketball is Division Two, and then so most of the guys are paid, but some of them aren't. And then you've got top level where everyone's pro. So for me and one of the guys that I used to play against in college, we flew over here and played in Sydney, undefeated, won the championship, and doors just kept opening. I've always had a background or interest in business, and after the first couple years of playing down here pro, I was offered at the age of 25 to run an abalone company, which is a seafood. It's like a delicacy. And the guy was, as we all know, occasionally in basketball, you run up against some guys that are just bankrolled. And he had a fair chunk of money, and he offered me the coaching role at his team at 25 and the starting import spot and the GM of his business, and won two round trip tickets around the world every year for me and my wife. And we did that for the next 12 years. So, it was hard to say no to Australia when, for 1 month a year, I traveled and picked any 6 countries around the world to fly and land and look around and, get more educated with how the world works. And all that time staying in touch with high level basketball. It wasn't elite, it wasn't NBA, but, it's the next level down over here. So it was enough to make an income and open up some doors and keep playing until the ripe old age of 42. So
yeah. Oh, that's cool, man. So I know it was for whatever reason, Australia has had this romantic vision in my head for so many years. I've wanted to go there, and I'll tell you a quick little story. I was in the best shape of my life and had been playing and thinking I was pretty good, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna pack a backpack. I'm gonna get a one-way ticket to Australia. I'm going to try to go hoop over there. And if not, I'll hang out at the beach. I'll go work in a bar. But I'm going to do Australia. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And so I'm working in downtown Kirkland as a bartender at Anthony's Homeport, just trying to save up money. And I get a phone call from Seattle people would understand this blast from the past, a guy named Gary Spinell, who was a longtime television broadcaster in the Seattle area, but he was working for the Seattle Supersonics in the sponsorship and broadcast department. And he called me up and offered me a job. And I was torn. I was like, God, do I pass up this trip of a lifetime? You know, do I really have the balls to actually do this trip? Or do I take the easy way and, take, the bird in hand, the money on the table, and a dream job with the team I grew up being a fan of and rooting for. And ultimately I took the job with the Sonics, which was awesome. And I stayed there for 10 years, but I never got to scratch that Australia itch. And I know just, from following you through mutual friends and that over the years, obviously when you got off the plane, besides meeting an abalone salesman who was a great benefactor, you fell in love with the country.
Oh my God. It's unbelievable here. So it feels like, let's not get political at all, but you know how they say, let's make America great again. It's like the America that I know, it's, people helping people. And there's a bit, back in our school, we were taught socialism, and there was a big negative spin on it. This Australia has a touch of socialism, but it's just a small touch where, people that need it get looked after. So, I absolutely love it. If you're a hardworking American or a hardworking person or whatever you are, you can make a same amount of money you can make back home. But if times are tough, the country looks after you a little bit more. So I really like that balance. And next thing you know, it just felt like home. I don't know if you left the area that much and then went back to a group of not your closest friends, but fringe friends, and you just felt that disconnect, that little difference. That's what it felt like when I went back home. There's just that tiny little difference than what I pictured home to be. So I guess at one point during these last 30 years, Australia turned to home, but I still got mad love for America. And unless they're playing Australia, I'm cheering for America. So
yeah. Let's talk about the Australia hoop scene a little bit, and I guess how it ties in with what we're trying to do with this program in Jamaica, trying to get it restarted in the proper way. And it's pretty easy to look around the world and see kind of the model programs and I can't draw a parallel between the two because obviously the finances are a little bit different and the population size is a little bit different. But Australia, I think had, if I remember correctly, maybe 12 years ago or so, maybe had a dip a little bit in either financial backing or interest. And then they kind of came back, and all of a sudden, you see a lot of Australians playing at the D1 level, and then they're moving on to the NBA, and something happened to where it exploded again, I guess. I don't know. Can you put your finger on that? Can you trace that back to anything?
I know what fell down. So when Jordan was at his peak, the NBA had big offices over here and were promoting the sport. And at that time, even though at home we had like 100 channels, over here we just had 3 channels. So if I was talking to you, there was a 1 in 3 chance that we were watching the same show. So there was NBA like on every Sunday, and we'd all watch it, and that just talked and chalked. And obviously watching the likes of Michael Jordan helped. And then as I think that era started to fall and the NBA was searching for their next guy, they took the office away, and basketball started to fall away here, along with, I guess, the Jordan era. Even though it's still there, it obviously has now changed over to some new guys. And for Australia, it just so happened that coincided with Bogut, Mills, Ingles, a lot of guys who fell in love with watching Jordan during those times. But now we're starting to be 18, 19, and 20-year-old men who could really ball. And I don't know how Jamaica is, but in Australia, there is a grit, an element of grit that goes on. So, you see the Europeans shoot the ball. You see the American guys with such athleticism and getting at the rim. If you're an Australian baller, you got grit. Even Patty Mills, who has a lot of pizzazz, definitely still has that grit, and it's bred here, to be tough and to be. And I think during that time of Dellavedova with LeBron, and just what he brought to the court with that intensity for the loose ball, you know how that is, man. Like, people fall in love with that. They can relate to it. And that was before Steph was hitting the 3 ball and taking over the world with everyone wanting to see 3 balls. But I feel like that's why it all started to kick back in. Those young guys that were watching Jordan got well coached over here and ended up, I think at that point, we had the most most players outside of America in the NBA at that time, with about, I think there was like 8 of us, with Baines and Bogut and Ingles and Maker. I think, I can't name them all, but I think there was 8 at that time. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So can, over here in the States, any knucklehead could be a basketball coach. You don't have to show any qualifications other, than being able to find your way to the gym. Are they qualifying coaches over there? Do they have levels like they do in soccer, football?
Yeah, we do. We all have coaching levels, et cetera, et cetera. At my level, you don't have to hold the card, but all of the junior levels and so on and so forth, you have to hold the coaching level cards. So it's great. There's all that here just sitting in place. So I'm not sure what it's like in Jamaica, but all the infrastructure from years, we learned about Russia having all those institutes of sport making their athletes better. Australia actually has all those, except without all the, the Iron Curtain stuff. So there's infrastructure here for if you want to be a referee or a coach or a player. There's stepping stones throughout Australia and pathways that are legitimized. So it's great. It's a really great opportunity. And we only have, I think, 25 million throughout our big, huge chunk of land. But there's 10% of us are playing basketball here. So
that's cool.
Not everybody watch it, but they love playing it. So it goes for getting some good talent out there.
Yeah, that's a topic of conversation in Jamaica about the level of coaching and the ways to upgrade coaching. And I'm kind of torn. I really, our model here, this, Dave, our model isn't one where you have to hold licenses and take classes. And I almost fear in some ways that would discourage people from getting involved. I could be wrong about that. I don't know. I think about it. It's a topic of conversation a lot. And there isn't that infrastructure in place in Jamaica, but they talk about it and wanting to create that. I know that I think one of the things that's lacking is a lot of playing experience. You just talked about, you know, if 10% of a 24 million population played hoop at some point, you know, you're going to have some playing experience that allows you to understand the game at a certain level. Well, I don't think we have that same opportunity to play yet, you know. So the coaches, many of the coaches, I'm painting with a broad brush, but many of the coaches that get involved didn't really have an experience playing from which to draw on, and so they're not the same teachers. They're not the same teachers. And so I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. What do you guys do with imports and stuff for your? Do you have a pro league over there, or what's the basketball landscape in?
There's a pro league over there. In fact, they call it the NBL, the same as you guys. It's more of like a pro-am. You know, the players don't get paid, and you know, they've struggled over the past 7 or 8 years funding the league, and so it's been dormant for about 3 years, and that creates then, you know, a 3-year gap in which guys either sort of lose interest, they gain weight, they get out of shape, you know, they're not basketball ready. So that's part of the whole list of things that we need to get done in order to bring the program to where it needs to go. But I just wrestle with this idea of how important is it to certify coaches, you know? And I think it probably is.
I think in the lower levels, it's very important because, you know, like I have a brand, like an athletic sport brand, and digging myself out of a hole is harder than starting from ground zero. So I think it's important to teach these kids some fundamentals that you don't have to undo, even if you just teach, you know, the basics and their ability to enjoy the game while you're doing the basics. I think is a great starting point. And then I think the other thing that Australia did right was, even though there was pro league and that there were Americans over here, some of them were like Harlem Globetrotters and stuff saying they were pro, you know, over there. But there was just the pizzazz of it all. And then in my league, there were Americans that were flying over, just like you were talking about, just for the opportunity to see Australia. Jamaica has that same appeal in terms of, you know, an exotic place to be. And I think just, you know, whether it's from the coaching point of view or from the playing point of view, just, you know, inputting that one or two talented players that could make a difference through, you know, we all had that guy next to us on the court that played like a coach as well. So sometimes it can just be them teaching them alongside them or whispering in their ear, or it can be the head coach. So I think as long as there's some level of talent that they can inspire to, that even if you only drag around, you know, 100 players, that's better than doing the, you know, keeping that, oh, we got 200 players, but they don't know how to play, you know? So if you can inject some coaching or some talented players into the system that just want to play for the love of it, it doesn't need to be, you know, Kentucky players or Duke players, you know, it can be guys that just want to keep playing like me. So yeah,
that's cool.
They did that really well down here. So now the Australian guys are better than a lot of the imports that come in. So 20 years.
What about youth basketball? Are you, I don't know, I would imagine you're familiar with AAU in the States, right?
Yep, I am. Yep.
Okay. So is there an AAU equivalent in Australia, or how are kids learning the game? Are they playing year round, or they just play for 3 months with their school teams, or how's that going?
Almost everything here. So one, just on a quick note, AAU is just taking off here because of what's going on in the States. But everything is like soccer is in the States. So it's all, 30 years ago, soccer in the States, where it was all club based and there wasn't much school soccer. So almost everything here is, like I said, I own an apparel company. So I fit out all these juniors with all their uniforms. So you could have one club will have 400 kids and they'll play against another club that has 500 kids, and they'll rank them in team 1, team 2, team 3, team 4, under 18s, under 16s. So it's very similar to soccer. And when I first got here, I really disliked it because there was so much, washing cars and, trying to fund things, where nowadays it's not so much that. It's a bit more, each parent pays its $290 to get their kid in there, and it goes all the way up to under 18s. And then, so it's much like the junior high school. And as you get to the top, there's less opportunity in the club for a player to keep going. It's just club based. So they can go all the way to the top if they want to, just in club basketball. So
how mobile are those young kids? Do they get recruited from within programs, or once you're with the club, you stick with that club the whole time?
Once you're under 8 over the 18 group, then they're mobile. They're very mobile. So and then they're playing against men, and that's one of the huge advantages that the Australian guys got. An 18-year-old is going against a 27-year-old. Sometimes a 16-year-old is going against a 28-year-old. And so we understand old man strength. And when you see these guys go in there and play college basketball, and that's why I think we have the Australians have such success going over there, is because they're used to playing against grown men. And then they're going over there and playing against guys their own age, and there's a real success scenario there. So I really like it. The only thing I dislike is the funding. I love the school funding where a kid can just play if he's good and he can keep playing and it's there. Where here, if a parent doesn't have money, it makes it a little tougher. So
yeah.
Well, that's a lot. You got 3 kids and it's $280 per kid. Twice a year. It catches up with some of them. So,
what's the top pro league like now? Is it do people? Is it a huge following? Is it like? Give me sort of not from a talent standpoint, popularity standpoint, like the NBA.
About 7,000 to 10,000 go and watch it, and the league itself is promoting itself as basically the best league outside of the NBA. And I don't know if you know this, we go and play the U.S. teams. We play the Oklahoma, we play the Suns, we play 5 games against the NBA teams right before their season starts, and right before our season starts, in an intergalactic combat. So it's a real coup for us to be lining up against our team versus, like Melbourne versus Oklahoma City. So it's pretty exciting for us over here to see those things. So there's no, the average guy here is making not the average, but the good player is making 250, 300, not 300 million. So there's definitely a lot less cash and no real TV rights, even though it's on TV. There's none of that money in the system. The owner of the league puts a lot in, to keep it going.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. It sounds, to be honest.
Go ahead.
Well, I said it sounds like Jamaica's a lot like, I don't know if you know this. I'm the head coach of the Australia's 3-on-3 team, and we are just starting the sport here. And the coaching is, the referees, the amount of talent and players that we have is more of an afterthought. It's hard to structure without the coaching. I can't ask a guy in Perth to, hey, what's this guy like? Because there's no coach over there for me to ask. So, yeah, when you were talking about that, I was like, it sounds like the headaches I'm having with 3-on-3 is, what's the best infrastructure?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because Jamaica is just getting their 3-on-3 program off the ground, and I sort of saw it in the rearview mirror a little bit, kind of getting closer and closer. I didn't understand what a huge push FIBA is making for 3-on-3, and how big it is in the world right now. It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. And the beautiful thing is for the smaller countries, I'm not sure about the GDP for you guys, but a lot of times it's tough, even if you're talented enough, as to have the funds to get the team over there. So one of the big things FIBA loves is that this is 4 players, a coach and a half at most, maybe a medical guy, and then you got 6 guys representing your country in the Olympics or Commonwealth, and it gives some of these smaller countries a more financial opportunity to display their wares. So unfortunately now the countries like the USA and Australia are loving it as well. So they're starting to dominate the scene. But I mean, Mongolia, you ever heard of Mongolia?
Oh yeah.
Mongolia was a dominant country in 3-on-3. So they're still probably in the top 5 in the world. So it's exciting. And, if I recall, you were a little bit physical back in your day. So
I like to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, the physicality of the sport is so attractive that anyone that plays it just automatically falls in love with it, because it looks like a wrestling match at first, but just like basketball, once you know the rules, you're like, oh, I can do this, I can't do that, I can do this. So checkers and chess, I like to say, same court, different rules. So I think it's a great opportunity, whether you're a 5-on-5 guy or a straight 3-on-3 guy. Most people in the world are interchangeable. So it's exciting sport.
Dave, did Ice Cube's Big 3 League make it over to Australia on TV or anything? Did you guys see any of that?
A little bit on the TV, but didn't catch fire or anything like that. So
I don't know. I don't know if I was in the minority or what, but I really enjoyed it. I found myself, in front of the TV set, maybe just because I'm a bit of a basketball junkie, but I think it was like in the summertime or something. I remember the weather being nice, and I'm sitting there watching Gary Payton coach, 3 guys, 2 guys I've heard of before, 1 guy I've never heard of before, and 1 guy I'm kind of wondering how he ended up, in this deal. But it was entertaining, and the games were great and close, and it was fun to watch.
It's exciting. It's like overtime every game. So I do enjoy that. It's a bit stressful because you can't really, there's no timeout to call or change anything. The players got to change it all. But it's exciting. I really enjoy it, and I still coach 5-on-5, so I still have that love. But when I first did it, I said it's like a new girlfriend. Like it looks the same, but it's new. So it is exciting. And, yeah. So it's in the Olympics this year. So we're trying to get there this year, and then Commonwealth. Are you guys a Commonwealth country?
No.
I
think so.
So we have Commonwealth games as well, and it's involved in that as well. So yeah, it's exciting for us over here, and it shows me some similarities to what you're going through there, because we have no funding for 3-on-3. We're trying to get coaches, and without good referees, to teach the guys, that's also a huge part of it. Is if you're not refereeing the game properly, whether it's 5-on-5 or 3-on-3, you can't play the game the way you're supposed to. So there's a lot, as we get older, there's a lot more to it, right? When we're sitting in these seats instead.
Yeah. So what are you running that? Basically, are you kind of running that whole 3-on-3 program for the Olympic program then? So tell me some about a little bit about that workload beyond trying to find funding. Are you out there trying to set up teams in different cities, or are you multiple teams in the same city, or what?
Yeah. So for the most part, I'm more the the one that goes and speaks to the groups. So I've got a team that runs the 3x3 hustle, which is our league over here. And then I've got a team of people that try to find the commercial aspects of it all. And I mostly do the talent ID, trying to get the right players in the men's and women's Olympic teams. So more of that side of it than straight going out trying to get sponsorship and funding, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm across it, if that helps. So it's a challenge. I'm across it. Like I get told about where there's no funding or there's funding or where we call it across it, like someone told us. So we're not sitting in the meeting doing it, but they tell us the outcome. So we do a lot of flying from state to state because our country is so huge. Just to do a tour, like if you're in the U.S., you can do 50 cities and just do a nice little lap. I'm going 8 hours to the next city, flying to talk to 20 kids. It's a real stretch on the old economic system. So it's a bit of a challenge, but exciting nonetheless.
What's Western Australia like? It's
oh my God!
Everything I've seen, it's gorgeous and beautiful and unique, and just a totally different deal, isn't it?
It could be the most beautiful place I've ever seen. It's unbelievable over there, and they almost think of themselves as their own country because they're so far away. Like the closest city to them, I think they're the most isolated city in the world, if I'm correct. They literally, you cannot just drive from one city to the next. You need to fly or take an overnight train forever to get there across a desert that you wouldn't survive in. So, but once you get there, it would be an oasis. If you were that guy that was stuck walking, if you were Lewis and Clark, it would not be a horrible day if you ended up in Perth. But, that's one thing I guess about Jamaica and Australia. There's beautiful part of the world, right?
No, there's no doubt about that. What about the COVID deal? What's going on with you guys over there with that? Are you do they have fans in games yet? Or are you teams playing in a bubble? Where are you guys?
We got bubbles, but what's going to scare you is yesterday we had 1 case. I think today we had 5 cases, and we are in stage 4 lockdown.
Really?
With 1 case and 7 cases. So this is a little different approach to the economic push that you guys got going in the States. We're over here, and I guess that is a little bit of a sign of the social aspect of Australia. 5 and 7 cases is too many. So they've locked us down. We've been locked down for 6 months, and we're hoping to hear tomorrow that we are actually let out. So fingers crossed I can go have a beer tomorrow. So
fingers crossed.
You guys, how are you? Yeah. Where are you located right now?
I'm in Seattle. It's weird. It's hard to really you talk about being able to tour 50 different cities, and pretty easily. I spent the first 3 months of this situation in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it was awesome in part because everything in Seattle was locked down, and not everything, but it was real open in Scottsdale, and the weather was great, so that was cool too. But then when it was finally time, I felt like to come back to Seattle. It was that time when the wave hit Arizona, and they started really locking down. And I don't know. It's hard to really understand from one state to the next, one city to the next. It's what's going on and who values what with it. What's important. to your governor about it. It's really the governors of the states seem to be making the decisions as to how free you are to get out and move
and then all that political stuff as well. I guess that goes along with that and makes it tough. I bet.
Yeah, that is tough, and we got an election in next week, and I think both sides probably have wanted to use the situation against the other, and so possibly maybe after that election is resolved one way or the other, maybe things will change, but I feel sorry. I feel sorry for myself a little bit some days, and then other days I pump myself up saying, okay, just, it's not going to be forever. It's not going to last forever. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Just get through it. And, that's all you keep on keeping on, right?
Yeah, keep on keeping on. I say that all the time. That's crazy. I think part of our basketball heritage teaches us to not say that saying, but tells us to get the F back up and get to it. So I have those down moments as well. And the fact you're coaching in Jamaica, that's got to make you smile a little bit, right?
Yeah, it makes me smile pretty much every day when I think about it, honestly. I'm really excited. Yeah, no, I'm really excited about it, Dave. And I was mentioning. What's that?
I said I was excited when I heard it. I know that you and I talked about 6 or 8 years ago, and you were, looking. It might even been longer. You know how time goes, but you were looking at different opportunities. And man, when Rich or one of the guys had told me that it all landed, that's awesome. It's exciting because whether it's doing what you're doing with Jamaica or coaching some 3-on-3, we got to keep spreading the basketball love. So it's pretty exciting.
What do you love about it? What do you love about coaching?
Oh my God!
I'm talking to Mark about this a little bit.
How did you for me? I was, after I finished basketball, which I was 42, I think, I started running Under Armour and New Era and One over here, some of the U.S. companies. And one of the clubs was coming in to pick up some gear. And they asked me, hey, would you coach our team? Because I had just retired from that team. So I picked it up, and I wasn't sure I would like coaching because as a player, especially in Australia, in the early years, most of the imports were probably a little bit more educated on the game than the actual coach was. So, other than Dean Nicholson at Central, it was more of an eye-to-eye thing as me for, during my playing years. So I thought, it would be fun, stick back with it, give it a shot. And oh my God, I fell in love with it. So the fact that I understood as I got older that basketball was teaching me life, it is such a great opportunity to talk to these men. And I don't know how you are. I don't care if they believe me or not believe me. I just want to be able to tell them when there's a hurdle in front of you, don't just say there's a hurdle in front of you. Don't go tell everybody there's a hurdle in front of you. Get over the hurdle. And then you can talk about the hurdle all you want, but get over the hurdle. And I think that's, with basketball, amongst many other things, it's just a snapshot of life. And if we can teach these guys along the way, get some championships or get some wins, teach them how to lose, I think when they come into, providing for their kids or doing their next job or whatever, I think they're just going to be more and more equipped to become the best version of themselves, the older they get, which is surprising for a basketball player because we think once we retire, everything's downhill. But I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like this year I should be better than I was last year.
Yeah, that's cool. So
I enjoy that a lot.
You're probably the same way. I have a lot of basketball coaches that I admire and have looked up to and tried to steal things from, and you're probably the same way. But I think one of the biggest coaching influences in my life of someone that I followed and really respected, as a Seattle guy, is Don James from the University of Washington. Yeah. And Coach James used to say, not because I played for him or anything that I would know this, but I've heard this from some of his former players, but kind of talking about that hurdle thing that you were saying. His saying would be, don't tell me about the pain, just show me the baby, right? I don't need to hear about how much it hurts. I just need you to produce, Don't tell me how rough the water is, just show me the boat. And there's so many lessons
with you beforehand, because I always have to say things too long. I just needed a cool sentence like that. Don't tell me about the pain, tell me the baby, show me the baby. That is exactly what I'm talking about. That is so much better said. That's crazy.
Yeah, but there's guys like that.
Yeah. I didn't hear any of those sayings. I think the sport teaches us those things. I think the sport teaches us that even though we're in the locker room and we're sad that we lost, we know that the only way we could have fixed that is out there and tomorrow. Nothing we're doing is sitting there. So I think when COVID hits and we have those down times for a moment, that's us in the locker room before we realize, oh shit, we got a game next week. We got to get back at it. So, that to me is, the love of coaching. I got to win because I'm competitive. And I think it's a valuable thing to do, to teach a player how to win. But in the end, I want to teach them about life.
Yeah, that's cool. So I'm jumping around a little bit. Forgive me. I'm jumping around a little bit, but Andrew Gaze, to me it was my first sort of impression and understanding that Australia produced basketball players. Was he kind of the first one that kind of put it on the map for you guys, or were there guys before that? I'm sure there were guys before that, but was he kind of the guy that really got things going?
Well, the funny thing is like Luke Longley for the Bulls is Australian. So Gaze is the guy that's supposed to be coming on in the next 20 minutes. I called him the GOAT, but Gaze is really the GOAT here. He is, everyone knows who he is. He was our flag bearer in the Olympics. He definitely was the Australian that put the sport on the map here. He definitely was competing with the imports when nobody else was. So even though Longley was over there doing the Bulls, people didn't associate themselves with him as Australian. It was Gaze that stayed here for the most part after Seton Hall and did his thing at the Final Four, and then came back and stayed, on our shores, where most of them go to Europe or the NBA, and then we forget about him a little bit, So that was a good call. That was a good call. This guy that's going to come on next knows Gaze really well. I know him too, but Daryl knows him really well. So
you think about all the great players you've played against in Australia, and there's been many great players, but I'm thinking of another guest that we had on earlier today that you grew up playing against a little bit, and that's Quinn Snyder over at Utah Jazz.
Man. Oh my God, Quinn Snyder! Wow, that's so funny. He was on.
Yeah, we had him on a little earlier. Yeah.
What? The funny thing about Quinn is I didn't realize this, and I swear to God, until about maybe 3 weeks ago, that everybody in our area thought that he was their nemesis. So I thought he was my nemesis, even though he probably doesn't remember me at all. So I'm playing over here, and things were doing pretty good. I was MVP of the league a few times and winning championships. Everything was going pretty good, but he was over there at Duke, killing things. And then next thing you know, so everything I did not only in 7th grade and 8th grade, and he was better. Every time I turned on the TV, he was better again. And so he had some trouble, right? Remember when he had a little bit of trouble? Was it Missouri?
Yeah. Got into a little.
So I'm like, finally, I'm on top. I'm coaching. I'm winning. I woke up in the morning. This is a true story. I was in Sydney, and the TV came on, and he was coaching Utah, and my girlfriend was laying next to me, and she go, "Oh, he's handsome." And I looked at it with Quinn Snyder again. I was like, not only is he coaching the Jazz and I'm coaching the Spectres, but my girlfriend even thinks he's handsome. So this guy, I love him, even though he doesn't even remember me probably. So
he's like you
crazy.
though, man. He hasn't aged either. He looks great. You know, had him on earlier, and we'll probably replay some of that later on into the afternoon, night, morning, wherever you're watching from. But
I'm gonna watch that because we the Australian team played him, and one of my good friends was coaching the team that played him, and I said, make sure you say that Biwer thinks, because at this point I didn't know that everybody in the Seattle area thought of him as either their teammate or their nemesis until Ed passed away, and then Ed Pepple, and I started reading some of the stuff, and the guys were like, "Oh, Quinn did this and this," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I say." And I figured out that I was probably just another guy on the totem pole, but I really loved watching him, and I loved thinking that we're on the same path, even though his path is a little more golden laid than mine. But it's exciting to see what he's doing over there. So I'll be interested to hear what he has to say and see how he turned out, because I don't think I've ever seen an interview with him or anything. I just see him on the sidelines. Good things. I like what he does with his team.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. When you look at that group, is Deladova? He's Australian, right? Is that right?
He's Australian, but Ingles, who's a friend of mine, is his go-to, or was his go-to.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, they love each other. I think he just had him in there to manage. Who was their guard? He was Australian too. So Simmons, I know you know that too. Ben Simmons, Australian, grew up here.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, right. Okay.
And then who's their point guard that they hired? Utah. Yeah, he didn't work out.
Exum.
Man, anyway, that's what Exum. Yeah, that's why Ingles got the job, was to babysit Exum, because they were both Australian. So, and then Ingles killed it. So,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, crazy.
Yeah.
Small little world. I really wish he would have been on at the same time. That would have been so much fun for me, remembering and him looking at me like, who is that?
Yeah. It's cool to think back about the guys you've played with. Who are some of the greats in Australia that maybe we haven't even heard of, that are just great hoopers that someday you'll be telling your kids, I played against this guy and this is what happened.
Is it Torrey Craig? He played over here. He's playing. Is he Denver now? Or man, he's an American guy that came over and played. Back in the day, I mean, I love to say that I accidentally played against Pippen and Rodman and showed up against Robinson, all those American guys. But there's a couple of kids over here, Josh Giddey, who's a real chance of doing some big things in the NBA. He's only like 16 or 17, and he's already in our pro league. So a lot of things that happen to us, which makes it difficult to answer this question, is our go-to youngs go to college. So Andrew Bogut, who's #1 draft choice, went over to Utah. So I'm not even sure how many people in America know he's Australian. So he went straight from 18 over to there, and then just kept playing pro basketball over there. So you guys would have all thought he was just an American guy, because that's the first time you saw him was out of college or in college. So Patty Mills, obviously I played against him when he was young and dominant, even as a young kid. I never knew he would do what he did, but you could see the talent. Where Dellavedova is an interesting one. He played against me as well, and we were in LAX together and talking. He was coming home from school, and I was coming home from a conference, and we were just talking, waiting for the plane to take off. And then it just so happened that we were sitting next to each other. And so we had 18 hours together to sit. And I remember asking him, so what are you going to do now that, you graduated? He goes, oh, I'm going to play NBA. And I was like, I wanted to rub his back and say, you're delusional, man. Like, what are you thinking, man? You're not tall enough. You don't shoot the ball well enough. You don't pass well enough. You don't do anything well enough. And this kid, like, I'm telling you, looked me straight in the eye. And I think I was, MVP of the league when he was telling me this. So it wasn't like he was just telling a dude. He was telling a guy that probably gave him 30. And he was confident as anything. And to his credit, what I forgot to realize is he had more heart than anyone. And, he did what he said he was going to do. And those are the exciting things that I think, like those little stories that you hear along the way when you're amongst it, it's the Dellavedova everyone sees is, a pro basketball player. We saw him when he was a kid and shouldn't have been playing pro, and next thing you know, wham. So, yeah. How about yourself? You got some talent in Jamaica?
What's that?
You got some good talent in Jamaica, I bet.
I think so, man. I think I was saying this again a couple hours ago or an hour ago. What we have is, like you said, we got young guys that if we had to compete tomorrow at the highest level, we're probably a little young yet. But by the time maybe 2024 rolls around, 2028 rolls around, World Cups in 23 or 27, whatever, we get a little seasoning under our belt. We get some guys that get some professional experience to, mix it up with men, and they'll be there. But yeah, I mean, we've got, we had a kid on a couple hours ago who graduated from Seton Hall 7'3", named Romaro Gill. He was the defensive player of the year in the Big East. He was most improved player. Just kind of came out of nowhere this year, his senior season. I expect him to be on an NBA roster. We've got a kid that played at Kentucky. Yeah, we got a kid that played at Kentucky named Nick Richards, who I think thought after his freshman year he was going to go pro, and it didn't work out for him that way like it does for so many freshmen at Kentucky. And he stuck it out for a couple years. And he finally, after this year being all SEC and really having a really good year for Coach Cal, another guy who was on the live stream earlier today, Coach Cal.
I saw that list. It's impressive list.
And we've got Dave Biwer.
Yeah, I was thinking. Yeah, now the list is. No, it's exciting. Like in today's game, how cool is it that there's so much raw talent? Like, I don't know what's coming out of Jamaica, if you're calling it raw or what you are, but there is such a demand for length and possibility and upside that it's exciting for players that don't get the beginning you and I had, where we're 5 and 6 years and we already got infrastructure going into place. So, as much as it's hard on you guys, I'm sure that new raw talent where people can identify it, such as what I guess happened at Kentucky, that's exciting, for everybody. It gives them a chance to make a new path in life.
Hey, Dave, when did you realize you were good? When did it hit you that, like, I can play this game? I'm pretty good. You don't have to say it to other people, but you just thought it to yourself. Do you remember a time when that happened, what age it was or where it was, or where you thought, God, I might even be able to make money playing this, or have my school paid for, or I might be able to drop 30 on this guy, however that manifested itself?
I don't know you were Lake Washington, right?
Yeah.
Were you? Yeah, Lake
Yeah.
Washington.
I was.
So when we were doing like the magicians and the traveling teams, you remember all those traveling teams?
Of
I
course
was
I do.
always like I was like number 7 or number 6, but I was good. But like the Ernie Shreve who passed away, those guys were better than me, you know? So I never, through all that time, I always just made the open shot, made the open pass. I never had that capacity, which I now find as a coach, I look for in a player. I never had the capacity to have self-belief. And then I was sitting in a college, you know, like it's right before training and the coach is talking and he's making fun of everybody and you do it every day. And you're like, what is this waste? But he said something that stuck with me to this day. He said, this game is 4 times mental to 1 time physical. And I was playing at Central Washington, and I don't know if you know those teams. There's a lot of athleticism out there. So I went from being a 6'5" point guard at Juanita for 2 weeks before I did my ankle to a middle of the road guy sitting in this meeting. And I thought to myself, I got to start to believe. I got to start to believe. So I started becoming an amazing rebounder and all these things that would encourage my self-belief and to not worry if I missed a shot or to have 3 or 4 misses in a row. And I did well with just shooting probably 6 or 7 shots a game in college. I was all conference, all that kind of stuff, captain for 3 or 4 years, three of the 4 years. And so things were pretty good, but I still wasn't quite what you'd say cocky just yet, which I use that term in basketball as a blessing. I love cocky until I came over to Australia and I was 3 for 13 my very first game. Made 3 shots out of 13 and we lost. And my assistant coach walked me through the alley back into the locker room and he looked at me and he said, we're going to need you to shoot more. And from that point forward, I'm telling you, it's a point in time. I had a game where I shot 40 times. I've had 48 attempts in one game. Against Bogut, I beat him with 33-18 in the national championship. So at that point, there was so much self-belief inside me that even if I wasn't a good shooter, I was a great shooter because the mental side of me was at a peak in terms of playing ability, even though, you know, from a body point of view, I wasn't blessed with the best basketball body in the world. Not the worst one either, but, you know, the level I was playing at, I had the exact 4-to-1 mindset at that point. And I try and teach all my guys that now is just to keep that self-belief. And again, I say it again, you got to do that in life too. You know, we all have a little bit of stuff we don't love about ourselves, but you got to like the good parts.
Yeah. Hey, Dave, you talk about the magicians and it's funny to go way back. And now here we are, we're on this worldwide, 24-hour live stream broadcast. And we've had John Calipari on and Quinn Snyder. We had Jeff Ament from Pearl Jam on. We've had Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses on. We had Sean Paul on. And here the two of us we're going to talk about the Kirkland Magicians back in, 1982. But I got to ask you a question about this because he's watching on the live stream right now. Our buddy, I don't know if you ever played with Scott Rolfness or you remember Scott. I know he played for the Magicians.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Scott's he's on the live stream watching, and I know he wants to say hi. And
oh my God,
what a great player Scott was, man!
Unbelievable. And me and him on the Magicians were a support cast. We had to look after each other for sure. We were not in the starting 5, so we had to pick each other up the whole time. So he's watching that.
Yeah, he is.
Oh man, hey Scott, it's been forever. He's unbelievable.
He's living in Arizona, and
Oh,
he's got a great family. He had a great career at Seattle Pacific University,
yeah,
and
I play against him this as well. Oh, that's crazy.
yeah,
This
I don't
is
know. He's
so
got
good. This is
something happened. He must have. His wife has got to be. I mean, not she's gorgeous and was a great athlete in her own right, but she must be the brainiac because his kids are absolute brainiacs. I mean, in the best way possible. They're at MIT and the best colleges and I mean they're the type of kids that are going to figure out this whole COVID situation
yeah, they're the
and
ones
get everything right back on track.
that.
It's great.
Hey, when people ask about who's the biggest S talker on the team, even today they pick me. So I wanna shit talk Scott, but the reality is I think he was smart, if I recall, like a real smart dude way back when. So I don't know, maybe there's a 50 gene pool going on. So are they 12?
What's
I would
that?
call him. Are they athletic?
Well, his kids
Are they,
didn't play sports as much as they got involved in like robotics and they were real
yeah,
competitive in that. I don't know if they have that in Australia, but they were super competitive at that and I think that competitiveness came from their parents.
yeah, for sure. I think I watched it at like 3 a.m. where the cars drive themselves and stuff like that. They park
Yeah,
all that
yeah,
stuff. Is that the
yeah,
robot where they have the
yeah,
championship?
yeah. Super cool
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, what a small world. Well, I'm glad everything's going well for him.
Yeah. And then
Fantastic.
another guy. I was going to try to surprise you, and I don't. It might not work out, but your boy Spar is up in like the North Pole practically, and
I know.
I thought he was gonna check in with us, but your former teammate is coaching at Alaska Fairbanks, and he's a Kirkland guy and a friend of ours, and God, I hope this COVID deal gets going here soon because he's got a heck of a team coming back
Yeah.
to
Didn't his
Alaska.
boy come over now?
Yeah,
Because his boy headed over to see it. Because I keep in track with, as scary as it is to look at Facebook nowadays, because all that stuff is going on with, that
yeah,
stuff. But I do keep track of what's going on. I called him Spark Car since he was a little young guy and a teammate and so on and so forth. But I watched his career over at Central Washington, and then their decision to change directions with him, and then him heading off into Alaska. Next thing you know, I saw a picture of him and a moose as he was driving up to school. So I kind of had a little giggle as I thought, oh, he's making the best of it over there. And then I heard he turned that program around a little bit, and I think they like right on the verge of playoffs or made playoffs or something. And this team is looking better. Did he get Coleman's kid to come help him as well? Is Gil
no,
Coleman's kid coming over?
I believe he's coaching in Hawaii. He's like the head coach at Hawaii Pacific or something like that.
I think he just left. I think he's coming over to help Spark Car. I think.
Oh, okay. You
Maybe,
might know better.
maybe
I know he's returning a bunch of guys. He's returning a bunch of guys, and then he's bringing his own son, who's really good, as you know, and so they're gonna have a good year.
Oh, my guy that's supposed to be coming on can't get on. He's trying to get online, so that's why I keep looking down. He's trying to text me, trying to figure out how to get on.
Let him know he's got to have Chrome. He's got to have Chrome or Firefox.
Yeah, I just told him to download Chrome, and he's still struggling. So
that's all right.
I'm gonna tell him one more time.
Yeah,
because he was quite a player, and when you asked about my career, I was keeping this a little bit because he was coming on board. But at the age of 36, I entered the pro league, so I was the oldest rookie in the history of Australian basketball to ever own because the Avalon guy was paying me so well. I couldn't head into that league, and then this guy who's supposed to be coming on was my point guard, and he's like a Rucker Park legend. And I'm coming in from, B League and B League fields and all that. And again, like I told you before about the mental side of it, it was messing with me a little because I was older. And this guy, point guard, he rattled off my stats. He told me everything that I bring to the team, like as we were trying to get a coffee in the morning. First time I ever met him. And from that point on, I was set because of his leadership skills and everything. So I was really hoping he found his way onto here because he was a big part of that truly pro career I had. And then probably taught me a bit more about basketball as well at the upper levels for me to get the success I've had as coach. So hopefully he figured that out.
You touched on something, Dave. Talk about that as a coach and as a player and throughout your career. Just the importance of a point guard who is not just a guy who can play, but a guy that can lead and almost be another coach on the floor.
I mean, to me, that's the ultimate. As much as like I was a big man and a leader, it's definitely difficult to lead in that position. You needed a point guard who's handling the ball and relaying. Not only because sometimes, as you know, the coach says one thing, but the feel is different. And as we become more and more coaches, we understand that sometimes it's hard to get the feel we used to have when we're out there. So a lot of times I would ask my point guard, what's the flow like? What does it feel like? Does it feel like we're getting beat here or here? Because you just can't see it as much as you can feel it. So I think a confident point guard with IQ has got to be draft pick number 1 on any team, because you do need those that mental capacity out there to read a play. I don't know how you feel. You remember that guy on your team who would be like, you'd be talking about the zone defense, and he would be like, you're trying to get back into practice, and he would be like, well, what if they do this? What if they do this? And then the coach had to just keep talking and trying to outline every single possible scenario. If you have a good point guard, he's out there feeling the game and fixing those errors as you go. So, for me, having a guy like Daryl McDonald at your point, or Ben Simmons, a guy over there, he understands that he needs a jump shot, but man, he understands the game very, very well. So I think it's a key. What about yourself? You guys got a good point guard over there?
No, not yet. I mean, I'm not trying to be flip about it. It's just interesting, and I don't want to say no like that. I probably shouldn't say that because I don't know. I haven't identified the person yet. We haven't put our roster together. So what I'm trying to do is compile a group of guys to choose from, and then from there. But the thing is, as I started telling you a little earlier, it's all big men. It's all 7-footers and 6'10" guys, because those are the guys that are able to get off the island and play. Because coaches aren't recruiting guards. You're not. Yeah. If you're a college coach in the States, you don't need a 6'4" guy, 6'3" guy. You got those coming out of your.
All right. Yeah, that's the crazy. The one positive is now as a negative, which I guess we've all found sometimes. The life of length. I think my guy just got on board with you. Yeah. But sometimes those positives of wanting raw length, and now all of a sudden the Steph Currys, the guys that now are a huge part of the game that weren't a huge part of the game when you and I were playing, they don't get that opportunity if they're not taking your guys. So